warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here representing MRSI. MRSI is an autonomous, not-for-profit organization established in 1988, committed to driving excellence and professional standards in the market research and insights industry in India. We would like to thank the Global Association, ESOMAR, for creating this unique platform and helping us celebrate our very own day, International Market Research Day, as we proudly call it IMRD. The theme of this year is Celebrate Research. This day is a global moment to celebrate, recognize the value, the impact that this industry creates for all of us. We are drivers of informed decisions, innovation, and definitely create a positive impact on society. This evening, we have leaders from our industry sharing their knowledge and inspiring us on the topic rethinking measurement in a fragmented media landscape and attention economy. Welcome all. We have with us today an august panel, and let me do a quick and brief introduction. What I say will be a very small part of what each one of these, this lady and the gentleman in the room have achieved. First off, Mr. LV Krishnan, he is the CEO of TAM Media Research Private Limited, LV as we all popularly call him. He's definitely a pioneer in this industry. He's pioneered a significant number of solutions in the audience understanding space, media research, data analytics for content, marketing of media brands, and not the least, audience measurement. He has been a mentor for a long list of successes in the Indian media industry, including, thank you, LV, for some of my work in the past. At TAM, he has always underlined the importance of intelligence from audience behavior and AI's data sets as a core delivery in a fast-changing media landscape. Today, he's at the forefront to create a revolutionary process for dissemination of well-targeted messages in digital and TV platforms to deliver superior experience and ROI for advertisers and platform owners. Thank you, LB. We also have with us Manoj Dawane, a business leader and inspires me in more ways than one. Manoj, we've only recently met, but there's a remarkable journey you have taken from leading the P&L for the largest telecom circle in India, driven innovation at Bharti. You have driven significant shifts in the consumer internet space. You have helped Shadi, Mauj, and you've also been the CEO and board member on some of the earliest venture funded companies in India. So, sometimes I see you as the technocrat, and it's remarkable that you have chosen to, become the entrepreneur in the high-tech field of digital consumer behavior intelligence and analytics, and thankful that we are crossing paths and you are in this room today with us.
Thank you, Sunder. Very grateful.
Thank you, Manoj. He's also an investor and mentor. So audience, if somebody has a great startup idea, here's the gentleman to call. Shuvadip, has been part of a significant journey that I have taken. And of course, he's been part of an organization that's grown 10 times. I'm sure you have been part of and played some critical roles in how snacks, juices, chocolates, and noodles and coffee have grown for you at ITC. I know you as a passionate person on understanding consumer behavior, consumer needs. And, we have crossed paths, Shuvadip, on several innovative exercises you have driven at ITC and, definitely challenged me as a service provider. It's been a wonderful journey. Good to have you here. And I also read, I didn't know this in the introduction that MRSA shared that you are a wildlife photographer. Definitely would like to see some of those when we meet next. Shuvadip is the Chief Digital Marketing Officer at ITC Limited.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shuvadip. Anuradha, good evening again. We crossed paths, I don't know, many years ago. I've stopped counting. Certainly one of the early adopters of marketing mix modeling, and you've challenged me in more ways than one. Obviously, it's helped us improve what we do in the marketing mix modeling space. Anuradha, you are a leader in the brand management and marketing space, driven many successful brands at Unilever, Mondelez, Vodafone, Star TV, and definitely, I'm sure you're driving wonders for Amazon India. Anuradha is the director and CMO at for Amazon India brands. Thank you, Anuradha, for taking time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me here. It's really nice to be part of this very august panel.
Thank you. Vikram, a man who's always asked me difficult questions, asked me about my PNL, boss, mentor, words, that I can go on and on about. But I'm sure what you will be interested in knowing is he's on the boards of several industry bodies, the ASCI, the ABC, the RSCI, the BARC, FICCI, Triple A's of I, and he's on the committees of ISA, INS, and the IBDF. He's the current chairman of the IRS and the BARC Technical Committee, MRUCI board member, ABC president and board member, and obviously, titles don't come easy. He's consistently been voted one of the top most influential persons in the Indian media industry by the Economic Times, and in 2024 was the recipient of Triple A's of I's Lifetime Achievement Award. Privileged to have you here, Vikram. But today the roles have changed. I will ask you the difficult questions.
Absolutely wonderful to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Participants who have joined us, I'm sure you will make the best use of this opportunity. Raise your questions in the question panel you have in your webinar screen. You can't directly speak to the panelists, so you'll have to go through me. So I will pick the questions up and bring them up to our panelists at the appropriate time. Without further ado, let me go right into the topic of the day and ask the first question to Anuradha, because in the run-up to this session, there's a phrase that you used that caught my imagination. You said the future is already here. What are we talking about? Did we even think about some of the things that we see today when we all started work? So I'm just making a twist to that and asking that question back to you. In the context of media and audience measurement, what would be your interpretation of the future is already here? And then it passes on to all of you panelists.
Thanks, Sunder. I mean, this is what you've already always done when the two of us sit in the same room, which is ask my questions to me. So there you go. I think there are two parts to this. The future is here and the future is never here. We never guessed. I remember learning from Vikram what measurement even means in the early times of my career. And even today, I can say that both Vikram and I are still learning what measurement still means, whatever be the duration of our careers, right? So, but we never imagined that this is where we will be. I never imagined that we will be looking at such technology-enabled solutions, so much measurement through the funnel to be able to pick out every single click that the customer is doing this, more data that we can imagine. We have more information that we can account for, and we have, like, through the funnel, from upper funnel to what the clicks are, to who is buying, when are they buying, how much they're buying, we have more information than we can account for. So in that sense, the future is here, a future that we never imagined. But
Thanks,
I think what is core would be just why the future isn't here yet, or why it's never here, is I don't know whether we all know what to do with this, right? There's an action that we need to take with it. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it's here, but it's never here.
All right. So I think you've taken the conversation in a new angle, Anuradha, saying, if any of you don't believe the future is already here, you can say so and tell us why. So Anuradha named you Vikram on some early lessons you gave her. So the question passes to you now.
Vikram is on mute.
Vikram, you're on mute. Can you unmute, please?
Sorry about that. Since we're talking audience measurement, I think when I think of future is already here, I would say that the entire marketing world has become ubiquitous media. So there's so much media overdose, which is incredibly fragmented. And the future is here because we now have the ability to capture this with granularity, i.e. capture what people are watching or consuming with granularity at a census level. We have the capability. but we're still not tapping this possibility. At this stage, I'll just throw it and say that while we have the ability to capture things at a census level, we'll still need panels. But the fact is that we can now actually go in this very, very ubiquitous media world down to a granular level at a census level. And that is staggering. I'll just leave it here for the time being.
Thanks, Vikram. Manoj, your views, please.
It's a perfect segue because Vikram just alluded to a physics law. Yeah, and saying that whatever is granular, like Anuradha mentioned, and Vikram said that it is ubiquitous, let's say. To us who are technologists, basically who have stumbled into the area of audience measurement, the starting point was the Newtonian first law of a change of an event that happens on a phone or on a CTV. So the moment that happens, if the panel, let us say what Vikram referred to, is structured to pick that up, then you've got that DNA particle of measurement. And what you build out of that, whether it's a molecule of conversion, whether it's a molecule of looking at your lift, or whether it's a cross-screen attribution, is left to your imagination, let's say. But if you have that granular particle in your hand, which is physically possible, or rather by physics laws, you got it. And therefore, the future was already invented by Isaac Newton, in my opinion. You're on mute, Sunder.
Thank you, Manoj. I keep doing that. What I was saying was, I don't know whether my physics date is correct, but you've gone back about 200 years and
Only.
said, you could already do it. And what are you guys thinking about and not doing today, right? LV, what do you think? I mean, you've gone from the notebook and pen and paper to meters and real-time data and more real-time data. So over to you.
When you say future is ready, you look at it from an audience lens at the end of the day, the consumer's lens. And when you look at it from that side, it's always a slippery ground that you're in when it comes to measurement. You're never there, but yet you're there kind of stuff. Because it's always a catch-up game for any measurement company or any particular research, actually, because consumers, audiences are moving at a lightning speed, actually. And when he or she is moving in that particular speed, to have a kind of a reservoir that enables you to understand what they're doing at any given moment of time, it's a real incredible task, actually. I won't say impossible task, but it's a big task to ask for. So we have, of course, taken strides over the years where you mentioned a pen and diary used to be the way the measurement used to happen, to people meters, to now return part data, to what Manoj says, any click on the mobile or devices that is getting captured in, which is true, okay. To amplify this entire thing, on one hand, when we are capturing content consumption and advertising consumption on the screens, the other side is there is an entire lot of data getting captured on consumption on a real-time basis for products and products entering into the home through e-com, through Q-com, through offline, all kind of mixes in nature. Now, the biggest task is basically that getting these two together in nature and making the task more significant to what Anuradha clearly said, that somewhere at the end of the day, I need to make sense of it to take help in taking decisions, actually. So we are slowly gravitating towards a situation where data is available, information is available. Now, to derive intelligence out of it is the next task that is coming on hand.
Thanks, LV. And Shuvadip, I know sometimes it's a challenge, coming at the end of it, but I know you've got a rabbit under your hat you will pull out now.
Sundar, everybody's spoken such a lot of serious stuff. I really do not know how to define future. I think if you ever asked this question 5 years back, could we have told this was the future? I don't know. Anybody in this room would have said. So I really don't know how to define future. Is this the future, or is this hyper fragmentation of the media world the future? Um, is the over expenditure that's happening to win on quick commerce the future? Um, is LLMO or GEO the next battlefield? Is dark social becoming the next future where we will find it again very difficult to measure? I really do not know what is future. What will AI and Gen AI play in our building brand and engaging with consumers? And will it redefine consumer journeys and hence our measurement process? So it's a plethora of stuff, Sundar. Yes, today we are all being able to, and Anuradha was alluding to the point that there is just, and she's lucky to be in an organization which has so much of information, so much of connected information and stuff like that. Not unlucky like us, which has many broken segments. But so there's a lot of data, lot of information, lot of tools to start telling you the intelligence layers are getting built. It's easier to do data engineering today than ever before. Um, I don't know how to define future, Sundar, really. We will live the day as it goes, and we will
All right.
find out better ways to make ourselves more effective and efficient.
Super. I think
Must
that's the spirit, Shuvdeep. Anybody wants to kind of respond to Shuvdeep, or we'll just move on ahead? I think we've lost Vikram. He should
No, sorry.
come back. Oh, all right, Vikram. So your camera
Am I
perhaps
there?
has an issue, but yeah, yeah,
I'm
we can
not
hear
having.
you, but we can't see
Sorry,
you. That's fine.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, I must have pressed something.
yeah, you're back. Yes. All right. Just moving on, just building on what I've just heard from all of you. And Shuvdeep, it was an interesting perspective you took in saying that 5 years ago things were different. Today, the challenges are different. We learn, we live, we are curious, we build, right? So this is kind of slightly backward looking, right? If the future was what it is, and let me start with asking LV about this. In the recent past, you can call it 2 years, 5 years since COVID, whatever your recent past definition is, LV. What is the one big shift that you think has happened in audience measurement, and why do you think it is so?
I think biggest shift I could think of is connect with interactive connect with consumers. Actually, in the sense, the fact that if I look at 10 years back to today, there are more connected devices in the marketplace. The new generation of consumers are staying more connected, consuming more time on those devices. Either it's consuming content, consuming advertising, or interacting one with each other on social networks, or whether buying things on QCOM or ECOM. So there's an explosion of activity happening on the connected side, actually. And that single thing has opened up a lot of opportunities, including measurement, per se. Right? In 2012, if I remember correctly, when the first set-top boxes ever came into play by the government, those boxes were not connected. Those devices that first came into the mobile industry, while they were connected, but didn't have any social platform in it, didn't allow you to watch any videos on it. So, so it was a one-way talk communication or two-way talk communication that was happening. The seamless interactivity that has brought about the change has also helped measurement develop itself in a very unique way, actually. So today, I see islands of data, actually. There are data coming in from various sources, including Amazon itself, has Shuvadip rightly pointed out, having their own data. There are set-top boxes from different platforms giving you data. The devices which audiences are connected with is giving us data. But now the challenge now is basically building bridges in between these islands. There are good databases, each island are useful for different customers in their own ways, actually. Now the central point is if I can build a bridge between all these data points or all these islands and make a seamless connection that allows for a deep understanding of what's exactly happening, I think that will be when we could say we have arrived actually.
So LB, would it be a fair summary to say that the big shift you are seeing is the availability of data, even if they are in islands, you think is the big shift, and perhaps the next thing that needs to happen is to kind of bridge them, right?
Exactly.
Sure, got it. Shuvdeep, your perspectives, please.
It's about audience measurement, Sundar. I think it has been a historic, and we've always um, wanted this, but we don't have it yet, which is the deduplication process of measurement um, to arrive at the true incremental reach. Um, that's one aspect. The other aspect is it's not about reach anymore because what we call as the multiplied with an attention factor. So it's
Shuvdeep,
about the
I
relevant
think
reach.
sorry to interrupt. I think you might have a bandwidth issue at your end. Just take your camera off. Your audio might come across more clearly. Just switch off your camera. Yeah. Yes, go on.
Just tell me whether you can hear me.
Much clearer now, coming clean.
Anyway,
Okay, great. So I'm coming back to the point that, today it's the challenge of reach is no more there. Uh, it's about the attention, and hence building a layer of attention quality to reach becomes very, very critical for any form of optimization. So does the attention quality, is it equal between a CTV, a TV versus, let's say, a social media content that we observe, that we serve to our consumers? Maybe not. And hence it becomes critical for us to consider that. The other angle that has happened is we've always lived in a world where we've worked with panels. Right? Even television is a panel, it's always been a panel. The ask is to figure out between synthetic modeling and, if possible, a universe reach in certain cases, to look at a new measurement construct. So we see some of these happen to some degree, whether it's in France and Mediametry, whether it is in England and we see Halo. So some of these are at play in US. Also, some work is happening. Uh, we expect that in India, it is. I mean, it's easier said than done. But there are many. You just mentioned Vikram sits on the board of so many important industry bodies, and they are all very, very critical to make this happen. But it's very, very important that when there is hyper fragmentation and when there is differential attention, that we start working towards an audience measurement which is far more robust than what we are working today. It's a very large industry, and there's billions of rupees which are getting invested, but we're all working with a lot of compromises currently. So audience measurement from that perspective needs to improve significantly.
So Vikram, if I could build on what Shuvdeep kind of alluded to in saying that, I mean, LV started saying there is data available, we need to kind of bridge it. And Shuvdeep mentioned saying measuring reach is no longer the problem, but perhaps attention and understanding that is the next frontier. Just wearing the many hats that you do and help guide the industry. What do you think are recent steps that are being taken? What should we do more of? How do you react to I mean, speaking about it so that our audience, I'm sure are listening. There could be some wonderful startup with a piece of technology that could change how we do things. What would you kind of allude to as the directions and thoughts and actions that we need to take?
I would say that the building blocks are we have to start with cross media measurement. So I would say the biggest change that's happened in measurement, and however imperfect it may have been, despite a industry system in our agency world, we've still been able to drive some amount of screen based unduplicated reach. You've done TV plus, so how is it that the entire TV, mobile, and now CTV, how can you get unduplicated reach across all three using some kind of probabilistic methods? Not the best, but at least we made an attempt to follow the way the consumer is going. So I think that has helped when now you maybe about 25 to 30% of the TV advertising, as erstwhile TV screen advertising is probably maybe a third of it, at least, if not more, is going into the digital side. Because one of the catalysts has been, however imperfect, agencies have been in actually trying to give unduplicated reach. So while Shubhadeep may say that reach is no longer relevant, I think it is. You do need to have the basic reach build up coming in. So that's the first part. And I think having a sophisticated cross media system is the first of the building blocks. Once you get there, I think you have to bring in equivalence, and that equivalence will come in through maybe measuring for attention. I think there's amplified intelligence in Australia is doing some great work there, but it's not easily scalable because they actually have technology which captures attention and then calibrates exposure with attention. But we've got to try to find ways, and I think LB's done some work on that as well. But I think the equivalence part of saying that an impression on a post, say on a social media post versus on a YouTube screen versus a TV screen or a digital out of home screen, what could be the attention span of each? Those are some things that need to be factored after that. That's the equivalence. But I'll still say building blocks start with cross media, then move to equivalence, and then I think we have to go into the other aspects of pick up that entire go to census, and then actually let's forget that. Let's just leave it at these two right now, and I think then we'll come around to also seeing which one works the best.
Right.
But
Vikram, sorry, I completely agree to what you said, but I didn't say reach is not important. I said reach is important. True incremental reach is now, see, every medium now has the possibility to have very large reach. It is the attention and the true incremental which becomes more critical now where we stand, rather than just pure simple reach challenge that we used to have in the past.
I would add to what Shubhadeep is saying, Vikram. I think this is a question of maybe nuancing reach as to reach that delivers impact. We are calling it attention, we call it impact. Because effectively, we used to say reach is where someone has seen what I want them to see. But the ability to measure it sometimes makes us go to channels that look efficient in terms of measurement, but don't necessarily have the same outcome on larger business outcomes. And I think that's the core. If you ask me today's challenge, and I think your question on the shift and what's happening on measurement, I think this is my shift. And I know that, Shubhadeep, you said that I do live in an environment where data is abundant, right? And yet I can tell you that the data is abundant from a certain point, after a certain point. Before that, that broken bridge that we're talking about is very much a reality even for a data and tech intensive organization, right? And that broken bridge is where we have challenges of, hey, we can measure everything, so let's invest places where we can measure, as opposed to where we can measure impact of that reach. I think that's the challenge that today's marketeers have at all points of time. Easier to put money into places where you can measure than into places where you have to wait for that measurement to show up.
Can't agree more with you, Anuradha, on that. We
Yep.
keep doing more of that, and maybe it's not good for the business, is what we realize later. But yeah.
Sure. Anuradha, you pointed to an interesting direction of outcome, but I will come shortly to that. But before we get there, Manoj, you started with saying, we can now capture that event, right? And you also heard LV speak about the need to bridge. What Shuvdeep and Vikram, kind of brought the context of joining the dots and saying, can we have reach, incremental reach, or impactful reach? We can, the acronyms can add on, right? So how would you react to that? I mean, you said it's possible, right? I mean, and we agree it's possible. That's what everybody on the panel has said. So what in your opinion is the first big step? If you had the power, what should we take? Yeah.
It is like I think Vikram very rightly called out. The first big step is to have a cross-media measurement framework. And to me, just before that, meaning since the question is about shift, to me, the shift in the industry and the minds of these bright people is the reconciliation that audiences actually stay in 9 different places. They are in social media, they are watching content, they are in bottom funnel, they are into retail media, There are various places. They are outside a hoarding, they are in a train watching a POS everywhere. It's probably the same audience who's going to see, Anuradha's production of Manoj Bajpayee, which is coming, season number 4. And if there is a lipstick being used in season number 4, let's say, is that directly found in the how do you say, in placement, where you can attribute it back to your bottom funnel pick? So to me, if audiences are living in 9 different places, how do we stitch up that audience is what the shift is about. It can be done, is what pilots have proven. Maybe it needs to be done at a scale. But when we stitch up that a red lipstick buyer is a Netflix horror genre fan, that is significant correlation. But is it causal? It could just be correlation, and then there would be a Sunfish dark fantasy biscuit probably being eaten by Shah Rukh Khan. That means Shah Rukh Khan jaisa health chahiye to Sunfish dark fantasy. These correlations are to be controlled, and for that I feel that cross media plus equivalence is a very, very good framework to go after. One thing I want to leave the panel with a thought is, while all this is happening and we can go after every event in bottom funnel, mid funnel, top funnel, there is another shift that has happened. It is in past tense, is privacy. And while there may be abundance of data and there is data pouring from all the pores of our body, let us say, but is it provenance oriented? Can you really use it? Is it to be used for measurement? Can we calculate impact? Who does the data belong to? Who is the fiduciary? And it goes on like a Rapunzel, tail. So please bear in mind that while we do cross media, while we do equivalence, and we'll find incremental reach 100%, because it is mathematical reality, we have to do it in the constraints laid down by regulators and statesmen across the whole world. And how do we navigate that labyrinth in a effective, two-factor authenticated, genetically kosher way is also another sprinkling of that real privacy powder that we need to consider. That's what I would leave that thought for further pulling the thread.
Makes sense, Manoj. In wearing my hat as the moderator, I'm just trying to stitch together what I've heard and make a summary. LV, you started saying that data is no longer the problem; it's available. Bridging it is, right. And Shuvdeep said, yes, we can stitch it. Perhaps not perfectly, and we can get some metrics. But what we need to do is have metrics that matter, right? Which is Manoj just mentioned equivalence in terms of what it means to have a reach in channel A versus channel B is how I would kind of think about it. Vikram emphasized the fact of measuring cross media, and perhaps within that is also understanding the role that each medium plays in that time for that brand and for that consumer group, right? And I think that reality, which is fundamental, doesn't go away at all. Anuradha, you also spoke about abundance of data, but perhaps not answering all your questions, right? Or perhaps not connected enough to give you the full picture, right? So I think the reality, at least the way I'm seeing it, is going to be this fragmented ecosystem of information. Manoj spoke about privacy. It is going to again have some restrictions in terms of how we can bridge this data. But that said, again, there is a mathematical reality, there is statistics, there is machine learning, and synthetic data, that we also are testing these days. I think stitching together and addressing, some of the directions that you have put together is certainly the way forward. And I hope collectively and individually we figure out how we get here, right? Anuradha, I'll now spotlight this entire session from measuring the input to what you rightly said, the outcome, right? And Manoj kind of spoke about impact of Shah Rukh Khan and Sun Feast and similar such examples. But what does it do? I mean, we are spending the money. Okay, we've measured the reach, the equivalence. We've decided to be in the out of home, or on social media, whatever the context might be. Measurement is as much about input and about outcome, because that's really what the marketer needs, right? So we'll segue into the context of outcome, right? And let me ask this question to Shuvadip. Um, what is your perspective on where we are in measuring outcome? Obviously there has been MTA, MMM, A/B testing, uplift studies, and the new popular controlled geo studies, which is the new kid in the block, or old wine in new bottle, if I may use that phrase. And there's been, at least from the journey I've had, marketing mix modelings are seeing a resurgence, right? Because it seems to be helping connect the dots in some ways. So what's your experience, and what's changed in the last 2 years? How would you look at things?
So Sundar, you said market mix model is coming back. Did you feel nostalgic about it?
I'm coming
From
back,
Meritus,
Shuvadip.
from
I
the
thought
Meritus
I'd shut.
days.
No, no, I thought I will shut that shop, but I'm coming back. Manoj mentioned MCP. It's revolutionizing. How we can do things. So you would hear more from people like Manoj and I on what we can do. But it's coming back. Believe me, it's coming back.
Lovely, and it needs to come back. I think all of us spoke about the challenge, and we all tried to articulate some kind of solutions. Anuradha said, within my universe, I can do everything. But, there's a walled garden outside. There are many things else outside. How do I connect every dot together? Vikram, in his way, said cross media is critical because there are probabilistic ways in which we are approaching it. When we look at it from a business standpoint, let's take dark fantasy or Ashirvad or anything. You know, um, what is my first biggest challenge? The first biggest challenge, that numbers are given, top line numbers, bottom line numbers, we all have it with us. Then how do we design the execution process? Starting with how do I allocate my money? So a typical market mix model question, Sundar, right? And then we double click further. I'll switch off my video if that, I don't know whether I'm still cracking on the voice.
No,
But
you're good. You're good, Shuvdeep. You can leave the camera on.
Those typical questions existed decades back and exists even today, and things have become a little more complex, and hence the answer to those questions are far more critical, especially when there is hyper fragmentation all across, whether it's consumer, whether it's media vehicles, whether it's the kind of ad assets that we are creating, our owned asset role, that means our own website or apps, or etc., that we have with us. The commerce channels have again got hyper fragmented and so on. So the role of market mix model is very critical. But the pace of change is so large that Sundar, the erstwhile way of let's collect 18 months of data, let's put it together, let's create a regression model, let's get the coefficient, let's get a fancy presentation out, maybe at best some simulator. I think that era will have to forget. Those approaches we need to forget. We need a relatively more agile mix models. We need far sharper um, level 2 level 3 models. I need to know shorts में कितना invest करना चाहिए versus in pre-roll, skip, non-skip. How much do I pay on my how much do I spend through influencers in top funnel, mid and bottom? If it's a large brand, what should my tofu mofu bofu mix be? How much should I spend on platform on a quick commerce versus off platform on brand building? Does it change between a niche and a new launch and a large brand where I'm a market leader? Uh, all these combinations, Sundar, we need it relatively more sharper and more in an agile form. Mm, So, can we live with the Bayesian method rather than a regression method? Maybe yes. Can I live with a relatively higher degree of MAPE? Maybe, probably yes. So, the approach shifts. MTA has become relatively more tougher. I'm sorry, Anuradha, you're here, but retail media networks, relatively inflated attributions. It's not your fault, but everybody claims when there's a success, everybody claims that they are fathers of that. So there's a little bit of inflated attribution levels that happen when it comes to RMN. So how do we solve for that? So there is a need, a higher degree of modeling requirement. in order to help us invest our monies more efficiently? How much of AI can we use here now to deliver it is the larger question. How much can we do in-flight optimization, because we can start the plan with some models, but can we do a lot more in-flight optimizations through AI? I think this is where we are all heading towards. But yeah, what matters, what does not matter anymore is what was the VTR, what is the CTR, what is the conversion percentage. What continues to matter is some of the erstwhile metrics: brand health, market share, new to brand, repeat rate, etc. But yes, it has become far more complex than it was ever been.
So Anuradha, would you kind of agree to what Shuvdeep said? I'm shifting the question directly to you because we just
Not
said
on the
you have more
RMN part.
data, right?
Not on the RMN part, Anuradha. You can talk
No,
about everything else.
Yes.
I hope you're not sorry that I'm here, but you're sorry that e-commerce is not is over attributed. But I think the point that you're making is exactly what I was talking about. See, I have to wear these two hats of the business that internally we deliver for, and the upper funnel brand availability, mental availability of the consumer that we have to create. I think that this brand investment to commerce outcome over time is the least attributed investment. And this is like, I feel like, this is like going back to Unilever days of having being given a book by Ogilvy saying, oh, 50% of your investment is wasted. I feel like we're exactly still in the same place despite so much movement, where when you're sitting in new industries, you're still convincing people, hey, it's really important to create mental availability, to create brand consideration before you can harvest it with impressions and clicks and performance and actions like that. It doesn't mean that I will not monetize where people want to harvest it, and harvesting it for me is just as important as harvesting it is for a person who's selling on my platform. Sorry, but but I cannot disagree with what you're saying. The challenge is super fragmentation. I mean, we'll all say the same things, honestly. There's hyper fragmentation of media. It's very hard to make choices between one and the other. It's very hard to make choices between top and bottom. I still feel that measurable, attributable actions when it comes in the form of impressions and clicks and traffic, easier to attribute, and hence sometimes easier to make choices between. But when it comes to larger, hey, this is making a difference to my brand today, or should I just spend it all in performance, or should I spend it all in static digital advertising, which will get someone to click and come? I think it's almost become like how, Shuvadip, it used to be, should I spend on advertising or should I spend on discounting, right? I feel like it's effectively that, it's become like that. And we never were able, like, it's almost like two sides of the coin. We're exactly in the same place. So any measurement that can come from, hey, let this run like an operating system on a continuous basis in your hard disk, but let it continuously ping you and give you information about, you know what, right now your investment is lower, right now your brand is not building, instead of doing these little dips to understand, hey, something is changing, something is not changing. I think that's, I mean, I don't know whether I'm making complete sense, but I think that's
You,
the
you,
gap.
you are, and I think the analogy was interesting about promote and give money away or create demand, right? So and that's truly the question. Vikram, I know you as the media agency, there's always a balance because you're justifying the input. You also have to answer on the outcome. But I'll come to you shortly. But I would like to get to LV and ask him. There was a mention of AI as data early on when I introduced you, LV. At one time, understanding how advertisers invested, just getting a perspective, gave us some views on what people were experimenting, where was the world shifting. It's becoming extremely difficult to get that kind of perspective. In many ways, wearing my media planner hat, it was as much an outcome in some ways, right? So what's your perspective on that? What is the equivalent? LV, that's the question to you. And Manoj, you are the technical AI expert in the room, at least at this time. So if you wear that hat, how do you, get to creating the balance that Anuradha and Shuvdeep spoke about, harvesting somebody who's already come and said, that's the last click and he or she is buying, versus creating the demand and, what comes there. And Vikram, after that, how are you balancing this question wearing the media agency hat these days? So, Elvi, if you can start off.
Frankly, many of the things that Shubhadeep raised actually is so basically answerable if one goes back into the foundation steps of understanding consumers actually, right? In the sense, the fact that what we used to do at that time was to understand who your consumer is, what are his behavior patterns, what is basically the way he consumes content or brands or whatever, how does he find that particular brand, etc., etc., etc. It's just that the channels have become so multiplied in nature, whether it's distribution channels or whether it's say communication channels or whatever. At the end of the day, that has more complicated the things, along with overlaying efficiency aspect, which is basically the budgets that are allocated to communications or for distribution purposes. So frankly, when we do quite a bit of brand lift studies for various brands, okay, when we go back to the core of the audience's understanding of the brand, okay, the three things that comes out very clearly. One is that the amount of differentiation that the brand has brought about between itself and the competition actually. Okay. So if there is 10 different atas available in the marketplace, and if one is significantly standing out and crying, this is what I stand for, and that is what equates itself with the consumer's need per se, that's the brand choice straight away it's made up of. So it goes back to Jack Trout and Alray's book of positioning actually. So once you get that right, you'll get most of the things right in place. Okay. Second is obviously share of voice. Okay. The more you speak, the more you're on top of mind itself. So if Sunder speaks the maximum in this entire environment, and he's talking about MMA model and he stands for MMA model, that's what the entire take out of this particular session will be, the fact that MMA model is the best, and the best person to go to is to Sunder to get a analysis done actually. So therefore, the concretization of what you stand for becomes more important than looking at what is clicks, what is VTRs, or what is finally the lower end of the funnel or e-cards getting dumped onto, etc., etc. Because ultimately, all these processes will actually lead on to ensuring the fact that that the brand is accepted into the consideration set when the e-card comes into play actually. And third is finally the equity that the brand has with the end consumer actually. The brands which have stood out pretty strongly even in today's cluttered, highly competitive, highly fragmented market are the brands that still have a very strong equity with the customer in terms of its performance and in terms of its deliveries actually. Finally, the NPS scores still stands out to say the fact that, hey, I am better recommended by a customer to another customer than many of the new brands that have come into play. So therefore, if the three cleaning policies are actually followed by most of the brands, the outcomes are very, very clear in nature. Okay. Only the media planner and the media buyer's job gets difficult in terms of ensuring the fact that that communication still reaches out to the end consumer, and that reach out happens at the most efficient way that the advertiser wants it to. So AI, elements of AI has only helped in creating that link between that communication exercise, the delivery of the communication exercise, and making that delivery happen at a cost-effective way, more better in nature. The rest of the things, finally, it stems from what you start with actually, right from the briefing element itself. So that's where I rest my case over there.
Sure. So makes sense, Elvi. Go to the basics. Things that we all very well know. Sometimes we forget is what you're suggesting. Manoj, over to you. how is technology going to help bridge?
I cannot resist. Picking up Shuvadip's line of Back to the Future, but I think he didn't say that. I'm saying it because I took you back to Newton. LV has just extrapolated David Acker and Philip Kotler together just now in the last 6 minutes. So I think that's a real primer, LV. And I'm going to give you a real framework of AI. Now, you have elements. What do you need in an MMM or MTA? Since that is a kind of topical approach, kind of discussion here, is you need elements of data, multiple touch points, multiple elements of data coming in from various parts of the ecosystem. It could be a publisher, it could be an advertiser, it could be an agency, it could be a measurement company. And these are the dramatis personae that are involved, who are currently holding these islands of data. Somebody who can stitch up the spine together continuously between them is probably in a best position to do an MTA or MMM, depending on investment or whether you want to find out an outcome. So when you have a supply side data and a demand side data, there is a LLM that comes and tweaks your supply side data to clean it, classify it, categorize it. These are the 3 C's on the supply side. And when you have an LLM that is publishing side data or the demand side data, it will give you all the metrics of conversion, of lift, and whatever you have. The join in between, the bridge in between these two are constituted by ownerships of data of these 3 or 4 persona dramatis, which is advertiser, which is agency, which is publisher largely, and there could be a media measurement agency or an agency, let's say, involved over there. Who is there sitting on the center of the bridge is the moot point, and who can do that nice little attribution study. In my mind, it is a collaborative platform. And I'm going back to my opening sentence of MCP, let's say. Just imagine that these 4 dramatis personae had their own MCPs, and these are coming in together, and it's like the electron in the outermost orbits, going back to physics again, which is the valency electron. The valency electron hooks to each other, and you start doing this daisy chain of federation. You can crack MTA like that if the collaboration platform within the boundaries of privacy is respected, populated, and maintained at an industry level. Let's say utopian, in my opinion. And therefore, if there is somebody who has a large chunk of data, let's assume it is Anuradha and the Amazon ecosystem with large chunk of data, but she doesn't have visibility to other walled gardens. Is there a possibility of building a model which is potentially looking at other ecosystems and therefore collaborating with the chunk of data of Amazon, let's say? So therefore, collaboration can happen on data and collaboration can happen on a model. Models are built with iterative orientation using foundation models, and they keep on getting better and better till they become a vertical AI solution. A vertical AI solution is what probably an agency already has, is a measurement company has, a brand has, and potentially a large publisher like an Amazon has. So to me, these are the elements. Yeah, just for a summary, there is demand side data, there is publishing side data, there is a bridge in between, which is collaboration driven. The bridge can be populated with all the techniques that you can think of, MCP being one, DCR being one, or eventually all these things are going to be run like a Charlie's chocolate factory with Oompa Loompas called agents. So that's the future, in my opinion.
Manoj, I'm going to interrupt and ask you to, quickly expand what MCP and DCR are. And you raised the question on who is the custodian, who's kind of in the middle. In a way, in many ways, it's the media agency. So after you explain MCP and DCR, Vikram, over to you for your perspective.
It's a perfect segue to Vikram. MCP is Model Context Protocol. It's a protocol. There are 2 AIs wanting to talk to each other, and they can talk through a model context protocol. That's the simplest, dumbest way of telling you. And the DCR is the data clean room, which is where you put your data, partners put their data together. They can see, but they can't touch. It's like a pole dancer. Whereas you can take the whole kind of thing out of it, but you can still have to return it back into the bucket. That's the DCR equivalent, let's say.
Over to you, Vikram. I mean, you heard there's a
Wonderful.
solution.
I think
You're in the middle. Yes.
This was a fascinating exchange. Uh, if I have to sort of capture whatever I've heard and my own thoughts, firstly, I strongly agree with what Shuvadip's how he started the session. I think at this point in time, with all the models available, our predictability has improved, but establishing a causal relationship, we've actually become much worse. That's the same thing. Somebody had said correlation is not causation, and that we are seeing we are victims of that. The other, of course, is there's everybody is claiming attribution, so sum of all the conversions is much more than the sales. So these are problems that we currently have. I also think the solution lies. Look, the models are great. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're great. They really do a fantastic job of giving you short-term lifts and stuff like that. So they must be used. But I think they have to be balanced with the what we used to call in the old days pre-post test versus control, A/B testing. I think now they're called incrementality testing. But I think the ability to isolate one variable, we need to be doing that. And I think Shubhadeep called it out, and he said it needs to be agile, and we need to be in this today's multi-touch world. It needs to capture all these things. Plus, it needs the MMM. And again, MMM have many more independent variables at play that you have to right now bring into place. Now, if this is the challenge, I'm just hoping what the last just exchange before this that Manoj was saying, I'm hoping that can be the missing link which actually brings it together. For the love of me, I haven't been able to understand why data clean rooms haven't sort of gained currency.
Yeah.
I mean, our common friend Gautaman has been sort of shouting himself hoarse, but he hasn't had too many takers, or at least as many as he'd like to. Now, for some reason, it's not. I don't know what the answer to that is, but maybe if we can, before we move to the next thing, if you can go back to the advertisers in this panel, why is it that you haven't embraced the DCRs more than you have? Sorry if I've.
So I guess it's a quick question then to Shuvdeep and Anuradha, right? As wearing your advertiser hats. And then, I'm looking at time. We have a couple of minutes, and I will invite Chandan to do the.
Yeah, in fact,
but
I would
quickly,
say Vikram,
Shuvdeep and Anuradha. Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, one-liner. Vikram, you're right. DCR has not been used to the extent that we should have. We started first with that thing that we will enrich our first-party data in a DCR, and then we will move on. We worked with Manoj also on that, and a few others. But I think the solution lies in such larger partnerships, and I think partnerships are also going to evolve. There is a bit more to this between just two parties involved in that partnership versus a multi-partner presence in the DCR. But I absolutely take your point, Vikram, that I think we've been a little late to the party, but we are in it now. So we've started using DCR at scale.
I think to add on to that, I think the key word over is trust. If an organization that offers a DCR actually brings it to play, there needs to be a trustworthiness involved with that particular interaction, actually. So somewhere that's what is the missing link, probably, which takes time. Shruti was not putting it in, frankly, putting it in the right word.
Yeah, I think you're being euphemistic. I think there are three fundamental problems on why DCR don't get used. One, it's not cheap. It's not cheap to set up an entire system for anybody, even if you're a really large organization. The larger the amount of data, the more effort. I mean, I know how many data engineers it takes to build that bridge, right? For the data to pass through a clean room and actually get presented. So I think that's one. The second thing is, I think it takes two to tango. And it needs to be a combination between the buyer or the marketeer and the platform that they're buying on. It's not always in both their interests to work like this. And when a lot of people are not doing clean room related and they're actually sharing so much information out there, then people who actually want the clean room situation, they don't have all the solutions out there. So the point that you're making, LV, on trust is a very important one. I think the question is, when you have a lot of people in the environment where, who will trust the platform to use the data whichever way they will, you don't really build the trust for a clean room. And I think that's the difference between what the platform will buy or what the marketer or the business will buy. And I think for me, the third issue effectively is that, I mean, I think the tech works well. The ecosystem is not ready. Like, I'm not sure that the data that we are matching, the identities are perfect, that they're actually being served to the same thing. So what happens when you go to this level of personalization of delivery? You then need to have very large models of measurement. So, in the context of what we are discussing today, deploying the data clean room actually is very important to say, hey, am I talking to the right consumer? Are they giving me the same outcomes as the matched or the cohort level marketing that I was doing? Is the commerce outcome of it is the same as like just impression based communication? So I'm just saying that there's a lot of learning that needs to come through. And it's not to say that we're not adopting. I think we're all working to, and of course we've got like media houses saying, hey, this is a really good solution, we should go through with it. But and we are trying, but I mean, that's why I laid out the challenges. I think there is a challenge of cost, there's a challenge of technology, there's a challenge of trust, like you said, LV, very, very well.
Yeah.
Great points, Anuradha.
Just a peppering on that, pure condiment, and perfectly elucidated, Anuradha. That's where, in my opinion, and I'm not being kind of prophetic over here, but the MCP changes a lot of these things. Because you just do a backslash and you are sharing it, and you share it just for you. It's not going to be a very tightly held kind of hand. You choose which data you want, you pull that only for that time, and once you're done, you're back dusting your hands on the bum. But this is where the orientation of federation using AI driven frameworks is going to be a really, really important place to watch out.
Thanks.
Yeah, so
Thanks. I'm wearing the moderator timekeeper hat now, so we're overshot by a few minutes. It's wonderful to have all of you and have your very honest and straight answers. I can see that we're all thinking correctly, and together, with technology, Manoj, that you kind of was the you had the last word there. I think we will collectively find the solution, and we as an industry, be it research, be it media, be it audience measurement, we will together find the solution. And I can see, how much agreement we have, and context that we all need to kind of work together. So thank you so much for sharing those perspectives. Chandan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Sunder, and thanks Vikram, LV, Anuradha, Manoj, Shuvadip for a fantastic and nuanced conversation. Thanks to ESOMAR for curating the entire thought over the years to celebrate the International Market Research Day, or IMRD. It's a global moment to celebrate and recognize the research, insights, measurement, and analytics industry to create a positive impact on the broader industry, society, and business. We have just finished a power-packed series on 4 topics in India, on the future of insights in an era of rapid transformation, the voice of our young Gen Z researchers, rethinking measurement in a hyper-fragmented media landscape in an attention deficit space that we all spoke about now, that you all spoke about now, and provoking a radical new playbook for research for startups. Now, these sessions obviously featured leaders, experts, pioneers, and emerging voices shaping the future of insights and research. And thank you to you all. The conversations were hinged around multiple topics, all very, very important for us to reflect upon, around impact, the importance of fundamentals, the explosion of data, the use of technology, the power of AI and AI agents, human understanding still remaining at the core, the importance of agility, outcomes, and so on. But very importantly, also reflected on the value of growth, curiosity, learning, clarity, connecting the dots, metrics that matter, understanding causality, and really trying to go deep to understand the why, the so what, thinking about step change and about what's next. So thank you to the MRSI leadership team with Nitin, Anila, Mithali, Shuvadip, and the Secretariat with Deepa, Sandesh, and others behind the scenes who've enabled and brought together this entire event. It was a pleasure to put this together with all of you. And this is Chandan Mukherjee signing off the IMRD India event 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you.